The wind blew cold across the broken land. Rusted metal and shattered glass lay scattered on the ground. Buildings stood like skeletons, their walls cracked, their roofs gone. Smoke rose from faraway fires, and the air tasted of dust and ash. This was the world now silent, ruined, and cruel. She walked slowly, her arms holding a small bundle close to her chest. The bundle moved. Inside was her daughter, a thin girl with tired eyes and a face pale from hunger. The child had not eaten for 2 days. Her lips were dry. She made no sound anymore. Even crying had taken too much strength. The mother's own stomach burned with emptiness. She had begged, stolen, searched, but there was nothing left. Food was rare. People guarded it like treasure. And when someone had power, they used it against the weak. Still, she kept walking. Each step was heavy, but she would not stop. Her daughter needed her. Her daughter had to live, even if she did not. At sunset, she reached a broken fence made of twisted iron. Beyond it was an old building half covered in shadows. In front of the building stood a man. He was tall, his shoulders wide. His clothes were torn, his boots covered with dirt. A scar ran down his cheek, and his arms were marked with strange tattoos. His face looked hard, as if carved from stone. He was silent, standing like a guard in the middle of the wasteland. The mother's heart raced. She had seen men like this before. Most were dangerous. They would take what they wanted. And yet, she had no choice. Her daughter needed food. She tightened her arms around the little girl and stepped forward. Her voice shook as she spoke. "Please," she whispered, her throat dry. "Do you have food?" The man did not move. His eyes, dark and heavy, studied her from head to toe. She felt as if he could see straight into her soul. She lowered her head. She hated what she was about to say. Her pride broke, her heart hurt. But she had no other way. One night she whispered again, her voice trembling. "Just one night with me. Feed my daughter and take me for it." The words felt like poison, but she forced them out. She was willing to give herself away if it meant her little girl could eat. Silence. The man stood still. The air grew colder. The daughter stirred weakly, her small hands clutching at her mother's dress. The mother waited for his answer, her breath caught in her chest. She was ready for him to laugh or to step forward and grab her arm. Instead, he did something she did not expect. Slowly, the man reached down to the ground. From a bag at his side, he pulled out a small cloth bundle. He placed it between them on the dusty ground. The smell of bread and dried meat rose into the air. The mother froze, her eyes wide. Her daughter opened her eyes and tried to reach out, her tiny fingers trembling. The mother knelt down and touched the food with shaking hands. It was real. Not a trick, not a dream. She looked up at the man. His face did not change. He gave no smile, no kindness in his voice. He only spoke one word. "Eat." Her daughter grabbed a piece of bread, stuffing it into her mouth. Tears rolled down the mother's face as she held her child close. She wanted to thank him, but the words would not come. The man did not move closer. He did not touch her. He did not demand anything. He only stood, watching them quietly, like a shadow in the dying light. The mother's mind spun. Why had he helped her? What did he want? Was this a trick? She had offered herself. She had made a bargain, but the man had refused the bargain. He had given them food without taking anything. Her fear grew stronger. Kindness was rare, and when it came, it always had a cost. The night deepened, and the wasteland grew colder. The child ate until she could no more and fell asleep in her mother's arms. The mother stayed awake, her eyes fixed on the tall man. She whispered to herself, "Who are you?" The man said nothing. But in his silence, there was something more powerful than any word. And in that moment, she realized her story with him was only beginning. The night grew darker. Stars hid behind thick gray clouds. And the moon was only a pale blur in the sky. The wind whistled through broken fences and empty windows, making a sound like whispers from the dead. The mother held her daughter close, wrapping her thin arms around the small body. The child slept at last, her stomach full for the first time. In days, her breathing was steady, her face soft again, no longer twisted in pain. The mother wanted to cry with relief, but fear still pressed on her chest. She lifted her eyes toward the man who had given them the food. He had not moved. He stood a short distance away, leaning against the broken wall of the ruined building. His arms were crossed over his chest, his face hidden in shadows. He was watching them, but his eyes were unreadable. She whispered softly, though he might not hear, "Why? Why did you help me?" The man did not answer. The silence was heavy. It made her uneasy. Most men she had met in this wasteland spoke too much, shouted too much, demanded too much. This man spoke nothing at all. His quiet was harder to face than anger. Her mind spun with questions. Did he pity her? Was this food a trick? Would he come later in the night to take what she had offered? She did not sleep. Her body was tired, but her heart refused to rest. She kept her eyes on him. Every time the wind shifted, she half expected him to step forward. But he stayed still, like a statue. Hours passed. At last, dawn painted the horizon with dull orange light. The wasteland looked no kinder in the morning. Broken roads stretched into emptiness, and the air smelled of smoke. The mother rose slowly, her daughter still asleep in her arms. She looked down at the bag of food. Only half remained. Enough for another day, maybe two. When she turned back, the man was already awake, standing tall. He picked up his own pack and strapped it across his back. Without a word, he began to walk away. Her heart jumped. Panic rushed through her. If he left, what would she do? She had food now, but only for a short time, and she could not defend herself and her daughter alone. She called out, her voice breaking, "Wait." The man stopped but did not turn around. The mother swallowed hard. "Please, tell me what you want. I cannot pay you. I have nothing but myself. But don't just walk away. Why did you help us?" For the first time, he spoke more than one word. His voice was deep and rough, like stone breaking. "You cannot pay me." Her chest tightened. Then why? The man turned his head slightly, just enough for her to see the scar that cut across his cheek. His eyes caught the morning light, and for a moment she saw something hidden in them: sorrow. He said only one more word: "Come." Then he began walking again. The mother froze. She looked down at her daughter, still sleeping, her small face pressed against her arm. She looked back at the man's figure moving farther away. This was madness. To follow him was dangerous. But to stay here was death. She had begged, she had bargained, she had given up her pride, and still no one else had helped her. Only this silent man had given her food. Her feet moved before her mind agreed. She lifted her daughter, tightened her grip, and hurried after him. The man did not slow. He walked with steady steps across the wasteland, past broken cars and dead trees. The mother followed, her breath sharp, her arms aching with the weight of her child. Finally, after what felt like hours, he stopped. They stood before a wide, half-buried door in the ground. Metal. Rusted, but strong. The man pulled a handle, and with a loud creak, the door opened. Darkness yawned below. Stairs led into the earth. The air that rose up smelled of damp stone and old iron. The mother clutched her daughter tighter. Fear and hope wrestled in her heart. The man looked at her and spoke again. His voice was low but firm. Inside, her breath caught. This was the moment. Was this safety or a trap? She stepped closer to the doorway. Her daughter stirred in her arms, whispering weakly, "Mama." The mother kissed her forehead. "My love. It's all right." She lifted her eyes to the man. His expression was unreadable, but his gaze was steady. No hunger, no cruelty, no greed. Just a heavy silence. Her feet touched the first step. The darkness below seemed endless. She looked back one last time at the wasteland, the broken world, the empty roads. Then she took another step down, and another. The man followed behind her. Closing the heavy door above, the sound of the lock echoed like thunder. The world outside was gone. And whatever fate waited for her and her daughter now, it would be found in the shadows of this underground place. The air underground was damp and heavy. The mother's steps echoed as she carried her daughter down the iron stairs. Each sound bounced off the stone walls, making the place feel endless. She gripped the railing tight, afraid her shaking hands would make her fall. The child stirred weakly in her arms, mumbling in her sleep. The mother whispered softly, "It's all right, my little one. Just hold on." At the bottom of the stairs, a dim light flickered. An old lantern hung from a hook, casting long shadows across the narrow passage. The mother stopped, her heart pounding. The bunker smelled of metal, dust, and something else like oil from machines behind her. The man followed silently. His footsteps were steady, strong, and unhurried. He moved like someone who had walked these stairs 1,000 times before. The mother turned her head slightly, just enough to glance at him. "Where are you taking us?" she whispered. The man gave no answer. His face was unreadable, his eyes dark pools of silence. She bit her lip. Fear twisted inside her. He could trap her down here. No one would ever know. And yet, he had given her food, had not touched her, had not asked for the price she had offered. That small mercy was the only reason her daughter still breathed. The passage opened into a wider chamber. The mother's breath caught. It was not empty. Beds were pushed against the wall, made from old frames and covered with blankets. Shelves lined one corner, stacked with cans, bottles, and boxies food. Real food. A barrel of water stood near a broken sink, and beside it lay a pile of tools. The place looked worn, but it was safe. Safer than the wasteland above. Her daughter opened her eyes, blinking in the dim light. "Mama, food?" she asked weakly. The mother kissed her forehead. "Yes, love, food." The man moved past them, placing his pack on the floor. He pulled out a metal cup, filled it from the barrel, and handed it toward her. She froze. Her body screamed at her to grab it, but her mind whispered caution. What if it was poisoned? What if he meant to weaken her? The man's eyes met hers. He said one word only, "Drink." She hesitated, then lifted the cup to her lips. The water was cold, fresh, and clean. She nearly cried as it slid down her throat. Carefully, she gave the rest to her daughter, who drank greedily. Her heart ached. With relief, the mother sat on one of the beds, rocking her child gently. She looked up at the man. "Why? Why are you doing this? You could have taken what I offered. You could have left me to die, but instead, this..." The man knelt by the shelves, sorting through cans. His voice came low and rough, almost like a growl. "I had a daughter once." The words struck her like a blade. She blinked in shock. The man kept his back to her, his hands steady as he set the cans aside. "She starved," he said simply. No tears, no trembling. Just a heavy truth that filled the bunker like smoke. The mother's chest tightened. She looked down at her sleeping girl, imagining her small body cold and lifeless. Pain tore through her at the thought. The man turned finally, placing a can of beans and another of soup on the table. "Eat," he said. Her hands shook as she opened the cans. The smell of soup made her stomach twist in hunger. She fed her daughter first, watching her eat slowly, her little eyes glowing with life again. Then she took a few bites herself. The taste almost too much to believe. The silence between them grew heavy again. The mother whispered, "I don't understand you." No one helps without reason. The man looked at her, his gaze steady. "Trust is the reason." She stared at him, unsure what he meant. Trust. In this world, trust was the rarest thing of all. That night, when the lantern dimmed, she lay on the bed with her daughter curled against her chest. Her body longed for sleep, but her mind kept racing. The man sat near the door, his back against the wall, his rifle resting across his knees. He was watching the darkness, guarding the entrance like a sentinel. For hours. The mother stared at him through half-closed eyes. She wanted to believe him. She wanted to trust him. But trust had always led to pain. And yet, her daughter was safe, warm, fed. The man had asked for nothing. Sleep finally came, heavy and deep. When she awoke, her daughter was still beside her, breathing softly. The man was gone from his corner. Panic rushed through her chest. She sat up, quickly, eyes scanning the room. The sound of footsteps came from the passage. A moment later, he returned, carrying a bundle of wood and a small metal pot. Without a word, he set them down, struck a spark, and built a small fire in the barrel stove. Warmth spread through the bunker. For the first time in months, the mother felt the cold begin to fade. The man stirred the pot, adding water, beans, and pieces of dried meat. The smell of stew filled the air. The mother's lips parted. "Why are you doing this for us?" she whispered again. The man lifted his head. His eyes held a shadow of pain, but also something deeper, something unbroken. "Because someone should have done it for me," he said. The stew bubbled softly in the pot, filling the bunker with a smell that felt almost unreal. Warm, rich, comforting. The mother closed her eyes for a moment and breathed it in, as if the scent alone could give her strength. Her daughter sat up slowly, still weak, but smiling faintly. The girl's tiny hands reached toward the food as if afraid it would vanish. The man served them first. He handed the mother a small metal bowl, then filled another for the child. Only after they were eating did he take some for himself. The mother watched him between cautious bites. The soup was simple, but to her it tasted better than any feast she remembered from the old world. She had almost forgotten what warmth in her stomach felt like. Her daughter ate quickly, spilling a little as she hurried, afraid the food might be taken away. The mother gently wiped her lips and whispered, "Slow, my love. There is more." The man's eyes flicked to the girl, then back to his bowl. His face did not change, but the mother thought she saw a flicker of something soft behind his scarred expression. When they finished, the mother set down her bowl. Her voice trembled as she asked, "Do you mean to keep us here? Or will you send us away?" The man placed his empty bowl on the floor. He leaned back against the wall, his rifle still beside him. His answer was short. "Stay if you want." The mother's chest tightened. The words sounded simple, but they carried weight. In this broken world, nobody offered safety for nothing. Nobody gave without a price. And yet he was offering her hands curled in her lap. "I don't understand you. I told you I would give myself. That was the deal. Why do you refuse?" The man's jaw tightened. For a moment, he looked as though he might not answer at all. Then, slowly, he spoke. I buried my wife because of men who took what they wanted. I will not become one of them." The mother's breath caught. His words were hard, but they held truth. A truth shaped by loss. Silence stretched between them, broken only by the soft crackle of the stove fire. The mother lowered her eyes. For the first time in a long while, she felt something like shame, not for her offer, but for doubting his refusal. Her daughter yawned and curled against her side. The child's small body felt warm now, safe. The mother wrapped her arms around her, her eyes still on the man. "What do you want from us, then?" she whispered. The man looked straight at her. His voice came steady. "Nothing." The word was like a stone dropped in a still pond. Nothing. In this world, nothing was given for free. And yet, here it was. The mother shook her head slowly. There must be something. He did not argue. He simply stood, walked to the shelves, and began sorting through supplies again. That night, when they lay down to rest, the mother noticed. The man had taken the floor near the door again, his rifle across his lap. She wanted to ask him why he watched the entrance so closely, but she already knew the answer. He was guarding them. For the first time in months, she fell asleep without fear pressing against her chest. Morning came with a faint hum of machines. The mother stirred, confused by the sound. She sat up and saw the man turning a crank on an old generator. Lights flickered to life across the ceiling. Her daughter clapped her hands weakly, her eyes wide. "Mama, lights." Tears filled the mother's eyes. She had not seen electric light since the world burned. The glow filled the room, chasing away the shadows, making it feel almost like a home. The man wiped sweat from his brow and adjusted a switch. "Not much power," he said, "but enough." He showed her how to use the water pump, how to heat food on the stove, how to keep the fire alive through the night. His words were always few, clipped, but clear. The mother listened carefully. Every instruction felt like a gift. Later, he stepped outside through the iron door, leaving it unlocked. Panic gripped her for a moment, but he returned with bundles of wood and scraps of metal. He worked quietly, repairing shelves and fixing broken hinges. The mother watched him. Each movement was deliberate, purposeful. He had lived here a long time. That much was clear. But now, for reasons she still did not understand, he was sharing it with her and her daughter. As the day passed, the mother realized something. He was not simply giving them food or shelter. He was giving them a chance to live, a chance to breathe. Again, without fear. When night came again, she lay awake a long time, staring at the ceiling lights that still glowed faintly. Her daughter slept peacefully beside her. Her thoughts whispered in the silence. He doesn't want a night with me. He doesn't want payment. He only wants nothing. But why does nothing feel like everything? She turned her head toward the man. He sat at the door, as always, guarding the darkness. For the first time, the mother let herself believe just a little that maybe kindness had not died in this broken world. The days passed quietly in the bunker. Time was hard to measure without clocks. But the mother counted mornings by the times the man opened the heavy door and returned with wood, water, or scraps from the wasteland above. Her daughter grew stronger each day. Her cheeks gained color again, her voice returned, and sometimes she even laughed. The sound of that laughter echoed in the bunker like sunlight breaking through clouds. The mother watched her child and felt both joy and fear. Joy because her daughter lived, fear because she did not understand why. Why had this man saved them? Why did he still give, without ever asking in return? One evening, after her daughter had fallen asleep, the mother sat by the stove. The firelight flickered across the walls, painting shadows that danced like ghosts. The man sat in his usual place near the door, cleaning his rifle. She broke the silence. "You could have left us that first night," Most men would have. Why didn't you? He did not look up. His hands moved with calm precision, checking the barrel, wiping it clean. Because I remember hunger, he said simply. The mother's throat tightened. She wanted to ask more, but she feared his silence. Still, the need to understand pressed. Too hard. You said you had a daughter once. The man's movements slowed. For a long moment, he did not answer. Then he set the rifle aside and leaned back against the wall. His face was unreadable, but his eyes stared into a place far away. She was small, he said at last. Smaller than your girl. We had no food. My wife gave her share to the child, but it wasn't enough. One night, my daughter stopped breathing. By morning, my wife was gone too. The men who had food, they would not share. They watched us die. The mother's chest ached as if the pain were her own. She covered her mouth with her hand, afraid she would cry out loud and wake her daughter. The man's voice dropped lower. I swore I would never become like them. Never. Silence filled the room again. Not the cold silence of strangers, but a heavy, grieving silence, shared between two souls who had both lost too much. The mother whispered, I'm sorry. The man gave a short nod, as if to say her words mattered, even if nothing could change. The past, from that night forward, something shifted. The mother no longer looked at him only with suspicion. She began to see the cracks in his arm, the grief behind his silence, the sorrow behind his strength. She noticed how he always gave the child the first portion of food, how he kept his back to them when he cleaned himself, as if he respected their space. How he spoke little, but when he did, his words carried weight. The mother found herself speaking more. She told him about her life before the fall of the cities, about her daughter's father, who had vanished the day the bombs fell, about the long road of hunger, hiding, and fear that had brought her here. The man never interrupted. He listened. Sometimes his jaw tightened, sometimes his eyes darkened, but he never turned away. One evening, she dared to ask, Do you believe this world can ever be rebuilt? He poked at the fire with a piece of iron, sparks flying into the air. World, he said. I don't know, but people, maybe. The word struck her. Not the world, but people. That was the heart of his belief. Her daughter, now stronger, often played quietly with small things she found in the bunker: a button, a smooth stone, a scrap of cloth. Sometimes the man gave her bits of wire or old nuts and bolts, and the girl would sit on the floor pretending to build tiny machines. The mother saw how the man's eyes softened when he watched the child play. He never smiled, but there was something in his gaze, something close to it. Something he perhaps no longer knew how to show. One night, the mother spoke again after her daughter had fallen asleep. Her voice was soft, cautious. I thought the world had no more kindness, that it had all burned away. But then, you. The man's head turned toward her. His expression remained hard, but his eyes carried something different. Kindness isn't gone, he said. It's just buried. You dig for it, or you die without it. The mother held his gaze, her heart beating fast. She realized then that this man, scarred and silent, was not just saving her daughter. He was saving her too, saving the part of her that still believed in humanity. She whispered, Thank you. The man said nothing more, but he gave a short nod, and in that simple gesture, she felt the weight of truth. For the first time since the world had fallen, the mother allowed herself to feel hope. The bunker no longer felt like a prison of stone and iron. Slowly, it began to feel like something else, like a home. The mother noticed the change first in her daughter. The girl no longer cried herself to sleep. She no longer woke in the night trembling from hunger. Instead, she played. She sang little songs. She laughed. The sound of that laughter filled the air like sunlight breaking into a dark cave. The man, who never smiled, would sometimes pause in his work when the child laughed. He did not laugh with her, but his eyes softened and the mother knew he was listening. Each day followed a rhythm. The man left at dawn, always returning with supplies: wood, water, sometimes food or tools scavenged from ruins above. The mother stayed with her daughter, cooking, cleaning, and keeping the small fire alive. In the evenings, they ate together. Few words passed between them, but each one mattered. One night, the child pressed close to the man's side as he sat by the fire. "Tell me a story," she said softly. The man froze. His hands stilled on the rifle he was cleaning. The mother held her breath, expecting silence. But after a long pause, he spoke. His voice was deep, slow, carrying the weight of memory. "There was once a bird," he said. "Small, gray, nothing special. It lived in a world full of storms. Every storm broke its nest. Every storm chased it away. But still the bird built. Again and again. It never stopped. One day, when the storms passed, the bird was still alive, because it never gave up." The child's eyes shone. Did the bird find a new home? The man looked into the fire. Yes, because it kept building. The mother felt a lump in her throat. It was not just a story. It was his story. And maybe it was hers too. The days grew colder outside, but the bunker stayed warm. The man repaired the stove, patched cracks in the walls, even found an old mattress for the child. The mother helped where she could, and little by little, the shelter changed. Blankets became curtains, shelves became neat, and scraps of cloth became pillows. It was not much, but it was life. One evening, while the mother washed dishes in a basin, she glanced at the man. "You built all of this alone," she said softly. He nodded. "You could have kept it to yourself," she continued. "Most men would have. Why? Share it with us." The man set down the piece of wood he was carving. His voice was calm, steady. "Because no one survives alone." The words echoed in her heart. She realized then that he was not just giving them shelter. He was giving them a reason to believe again. But the wasteland was never quiet for long. One night, after the fire had burned low and the mother and child were sleeping, a sharp noise echoed from above, the sound of metal striking against stone. The mother woke instantly, her heart racing. The man was already on his feet, rifle in hand, eyes sharp. He moved to the iron door and listened. "Mama," the child whispered, frightened. The mother pulled her close. "It's all right." "Oh." The man held up a hand, signaling for silence. The noise came again. Footsteps, voices, faint but real. Strangers were outside. The mother's blood ran cold. She remembered men in the wasteland, cruel, hungry, violent. If they found the bunker, if they forced the door. The man's face was stone. He lowered himself beside the door, rifle ready. His voice was barely above a whisper. "They won't come in," he said. The mother swallowed hard. "And if they try?" His eyes were hard, sharp as steel. "Then they won't leave." The bunker grew silent again. The voices outside faded slowly into the distance, the footsteps echoing away. The mother's body shook with relief. She looked at the man. He had not fired. He had not needed to. His presence alone had been enough. For the first time, she truly believed her daughter was safe. In the days that followed, something stronger grew between them. The mother no longer looked at the man only with fear. She began to see him as something else: protector, companion, perhaps even the beginning of family. When her daughter laughed, she no longer felt shame for the joy. When she cooked for 3, not 2. And when she spoke, she found herself speaking not just to her child, but also to him. One night, as they sat by the fire, the child curled up and whispered, "Mama, can we stay here forever?" The mother looked at the man. For once, he did not look away. His eyes met hers, and though his lips did not move, the silence carried an answer. Maybe forever was possible. Asterisk, the days slipped into weeks. Oh, none of them counted how many. Time in the wasteland had always been measured by hunger and fear. But here, inside the bunker, it was measured by warmth, by meals, by the sound of a child's laughter. The mother noticed her daughter's cheeks were no longer hollow. Her small body grew stronger, her steps firmer. The girl even began to hum when she played with the scraps of wire and stone the man gave her. The mother herself felt different too. For the first time since the world had fallen, she did not wake every morning expecting to die. She did not walk the broken streets begging for mercy. Here, she lived. Here, her child lived. Still, she often wondered about the man. He remained quiet, always watching, always working. His grief was still carved into his face like stone. But something new lived behind his eyes. Something almost gentle. One evening, as the fire burned low, the mother finally asked the question that had weighed on her heart. Why us? You could have saved anyone. Why me? Why my daughter? The man looked at her for a long time. Then his gaze shifted to the sleeping child curled in a blanket. His voice was rough, but steady. Because I couldn't save mine. The words broke. Something inside her. Tears stung her eyes. She wanted to speak, but her throat closed. Instead, she reached out her hand. For a moment, he hesitated. Then, slowly, he placed his scarred hand in hers. It was not the hand of a stranger anymore. It was the hand of family life in the bunker continued, but danger never stayed far away. The world above was still broken, and desperate people searched the ruins like wolves hunting for scraps. One cold night, the sound of shouting woke them. This time, it was closer to close. The man stood at once, rifle ready, his face hard. He motioned for silence. The mother clutched her daughter, heart racing. Voices echoed outside, rough and angry. The scrape of boots on metal. A hammering on the heavy door. The girl whimpered, "Mama?" The man crouched by the door, whispering low, "Stay behind me." The pounding grew louder. A voice outside shouted, "We know you're in there. Open up." The man's eyes narrowed. His hands tightened on the rifle. But he did not move to open the door. Instead, he waited, silent as stone. Minutes dragged like hours. The mother's body shook. She thought the door would break, that death would spill inside. Then, slowly, the pounding stopped. The voices faded. Boots scraped across stone, growing distant. Finally, silence returned. The man lowered his weapon, his breath calm and steady. The mother's knees gave way, and she sank to the floor, clutching her daughter. Tears ran down her cheeks. The child buried her face in her chest. The man turned, his eyes meeting the mother's. In his gaze was no fear, only certainty. "They won't touch you here," he said. The mother nodded through her tears. She believed him. The following day, she sat by the fire while her daughter played with bolts and wires. The girl's small hands worked carefully, trying to build something that only she could imagine. The mother watched her child, then looked at the man. "You've given us more than food," she said softly. "You've given us safety. You've given her a chance to be a child again, and you've given me hope." The man shook his head slightly. "I've given nothing. I only did what should be done." But the mother smiled. "No, you gave us a home that's more than anyone else has done." The man looked at the girl, who was laughing softly as she balanced a stone on top of her little tower of bolts. His expression shifted just for a moment. Not a smile, but something close, something almost lost that was finding its way back. The mother saw it. She felt it. For the first time since the world had ended, they were not alone. They were a family, not by blood, but by choice. That night, as the fire glowed faintly in the stove, the mother whispered a prayer she thought she had forgotten. "Thank you," she said, though she did not know if she spoke to the man, to the heavens, or to humanity. Itself, the wasteland above was still cruel, still broken. But here, in this hidden place, humanity had survived. Not in the walls of the bunker, not in the weapons or the food, but in the kindness of a man who chose compassion when he could have chosen cruelty. Her daughter slept peacefully beside her. The man sat at his place by the door, rifle across his knees. But now, when she looked at him, she did not see only a guard. She saw something greater. She saw the proof that even in the ruins of the world, humanity was still alive. And that, she thought, was more powerful than any weapon, any wall, any army. It was the one thing that could never truly be destroyed.